When Buffalo transplants Mandy Bailey and Trueman Muhrer-Irwin heard about the idea of establishing a community cafe in the Queen City, they became engaged and involved. With Mandy's culinary skills and Trueman's not-for-profit experience, the couple were a perfect match for the project. That's how Mandy found herself on a plane to Colorado, where she visited and experienced several community cafes already successfully underway in the Rocky Mountain state.
The customers that came in were all open to this concept, and they all were happy to participate in just being all in the same room together with lots of different people.
Well, and it was not just people who needed assistance coming in. You had a huge variety of different types of people with different backgrounds, people with different incomes coming here to participate in this thing that is the community cafe.
Did you find that there was a socioeconomic group that came that had nothing to do with needing, as your husband just suggested, needing that opportunity to be fed, but wanted the experience to be part of a community and to bring their own money or function to this?
Yes, it was probably more than half that.
Were you surprised by that? But I would think it would mostly be people who are in need, not people who could afford to give because they could go to any restaurant in town. So why would they come to a community cafe?
Well, that's a big part of the community cafe model. The term community cafe has come to represent a pretty specific business model now. Now with the national organization and the ability to sort of share best practices and ideas, it's come to represent something very specific. And in a community cafe, community building is central to it. Unlike a soup kitchen, which is specifically designed to serve a needy population, a community cafe reaches beyond the underserved. It brings in both the people who need a little extra help of additional food security, but it also brings in people who want to have a good meal and want to participate in their community and through going out to lunch, help make it a better place.
So you have a responsibility to then create a menu and a product that's above par, above the norm. There's no price structure at all.
They'll have a suggested price structure, and that's based on...
I'm sorry, the term for that is suggested donation.
Yeah, and that's based on just typical costing.
You go out to Colorado, you experience this in a full-on every aspect of it, and come home, and what's your report back to this not-for-profit that sent you?
It was wonderful.
While Mandy's assessment of Colorado's community cafes was wonderful, her health was not. On her return flight to Buffalo, Mandy began to experience dizziness and a loss of strength that made it almost impossible for her to even carry her suitcase through the airport. As Trueman recalls, those symptoms were just the beginning of the physical challenges Mandy was about to endure.
Dizziness issues turned out to be a vision thing, and as it got worse, we went to the doctor. They thought maybe it was vertigo, maybe it's a pinched nerve. She started to have some peripheral neuropathy, some numbness in her extremities, some loss of feeling. But it progressed very rapidly. It went from having difficulty walking upstairs and slight balance issues. In July, by September, Mandy couldn't sit up in bed on her own, couldn't dress herself, she couldn't get transfer from a bed to a wheelchair. She started just using a cane, just sometimes, and then it was, well, here's a walker just for if you have to go a long way, and then, well, here's a wheelchair just sometimes if you're tired or going a long way. Finally, we saw a neurologist who said, you just need to go to the emergency room because this is progressing so rapidly that we cannot possibly treat this on an outpatient basis at the rate it's progressing.
You got the diagnosis or the prognosis. What did they say?
It's a weird, rare thing. It's called neuromyelitis.
Neuromyelitis optica, or Devick's disorder. It's a lot like MS. In fact, that was what Mandy was initially diagnosed with, and then her neurologist did some follow-on tests and found out it's this slightly different thing. Like MS, they don't know exactly what causes it. It's probably largely environmental. The doctor said she actually probably contracted it when she was a teenager, but it's twice as common in women, tends to manifest in their 30s.
At the time that you went into the emergency room, you weren't even able to sit up in bed.
Yep.
When I came in the door, you walked in, you sat down, you managed yourself, so
Yep.
clearly there's been improvement. And what
yes.
facilitated the improvement?
Thank God. This wonderful neurologist. Yay, hooray for Dr. Hannah Kolb.
It turns out there's a lot of experts in these types of disorders here in Western New York.
It's prevalent.
Yeah, so some of the very best doctors in the world are right there at Buffalo General, and Mandy got to see those doctors.
Yeah. Dr. Kolb specializes in exactly the weird thing that I have, and had moved here to Buffalo from having taught about specifically this weird thing that I have at Harvard. They had moved her here pretty much right when I had gotten it, so yay, thank you.
How long did it take from the time that she diagnosed you and told you, gave you the parameters, and you started to have improvement?
I actually don't remember, so how long?
Not long. They did some very aggressive treatment involving some drug infusions. They also did a treatment where they take your blood out and separate the plasma out, put new synthetic plasma in and put it back in. Kind of like dialysis, but not quite. She got physical therapy and progressed very rapidly, got back to where she was walking with canes. And then a complication with the medication, she got a rare brain infection because she was immune compromised because of the medication they had her on, and she had a bad case of encephalitis, followed by a relapse of the disorder.
So you come out of all this kind of dark cloud time in your family's life, but what makes you think that you're going to have the strength and energy to try to get this community cafe up and running?
Optimism.
Keep on trucking.
Mandy actually, when it comes to kitchen stuff, she's very skilled. She still cooks dinner here every night. And you've done several wedding cakes. And Big Table had a party recently. We did a fundraising party at Resurgence Brewery, and Mandy cooked all the food for that. I think we fed 75 or 80 people at that event.
Something like that, yeah.
So when do you get to the point, Mandy, that you're firmly entrenched in, I'm going to make this happen? Because there was a point in your medical progression that it wouldn't have been possible.
Right. Wow. I don't even know how to answer that question.
Because it never left your mind.
No, it didn't.
No, Mandy never stopped talking about this or thinking about it. The only point that's sort of like that was the point where she decided it definitely wasn't going to happen with anybody else. She was always completely committed to this idea. But I would say there was a point sometime in 2014 where she decided, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen.